Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Realistic 151 project, the series where I make realistic versions of the first generation of Pokemon. I know that spooky season has sadly been over for about a week now, but hey, I'm recording this on election day, and for my American audience, some of you may agree that during election years, spooky season doesn't really end until the scariest day of the year, that being election day. Either that, or I simply was bad at managing my procrastination this month. Either way, I have one more spooky season entry for you all this year, that being Drowzee and Hypno. Even though this is one of the more out there lines of Generation 1, it doesn't seem to have a true real-world analog besides their loose connection to tapirs. I surprisingly didn't find designing this line too terribly difficult. For Drowzee, I took a lot of tapir anatomy to inspire this design, of course using the head and snout, but also the shape of the rib cage and musculature of the limbs. Translating that sleepy expression was also not too big of a challenge, as I simply drooped the eyelid in the fashion that it was in the original and added the detail of bloodshot eyes and a ring to give it that exhausted look. When it came to the color palette, the colors themselves were fairly easy to translate, with a desaturated version of the original, which seems to be a pretty good catch-all for these designs. I decided, however, that I would interpret the weird wavy pattern that cuts across the midsection, dividing the yellow and brown, as a spotted transition that can be found on many real-life tapirs. Adding a small amount of human musculature, mainly around the joints to fit them properly in the stance that the original Drowzee takes, was really the only big addition to give it that added aspect of believability, and that was all. So here's my interpretation of Drowzee, the Hypnosis Pokemon. Now, Hypno was a lot trickier of a design than Drowzee was, as even though it's supposed to still be based on that Japanese legend of a tapir eating dreams, it shares no similar traits with a real-world tapir. If anything, it takes a lot of traits from classical depictions of goblins, and so, being a big Tolkien nerd myself, I immediately thought that I could take some visual inspiration from the Peter Jackson adaptations of The Hobbit. I looked into concept art and the CG models that were used to create the goblins of Goblin Town in that film, that used a lot of just off-human anatomical forms to create this gaunt, misshapen form that looks like a spooky old goblin. I also interpreted the strange, almost medieval jester-type neck fur as a hair and beard, taking a pattern of a balding old man with hair coming out of the ears and originating on the sides of the head, which fits the strange backstory of this Pokemon. The pendant that Hypno uses seems to look a lot like a metal washer, and so I used the reference of some of those that I actually had lying around in my own house, and gave it that metal sheen. Coloring it was very easy, as real Hypno is a singular shade of yellow, besides for, of course, its neck fur. But I added the addition of some blemishes and imperfections in the skin, especially on the head. As for having this Pokemon as a pet, even though it has a very creepy appearance, it probably wouldn't hurt you specifically. You may just forget your dreams as it eats them, which, as long as you don't mind a creepy goblin/tapir creature standing over your bed at night, which for the record I do, it could actually be kind of helpful. Well, at least if you have nightmares. And so here is my interpretation of Hypno, the Hypnosis Pokemon. So here are my designs for Drowzee and Hypno. What do you think? A bit creepier than the originals perhaps, but I feel like that kind of fits with their bizarre Pokédex entries. Let me know how you feel about them, and more importantly, let me know which Generation 1 Pokemon you would like to see next in the comments below. Spooky season is over, so whoever's next could really be anyone, so make sure your favorites come next. A special thanks to my patrons who are appearing on screen now, and support the channel by making projects like this possible. If you would like to join them in their support, you can do so at the link in the description for as little as $3 a month. Thank you to all my patrons, and as always, thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, then leave a like, and if you want to see other videos like it, then subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.